Hi guys, welcome to the 11th podcast of Let's Revise MBBS Cardiology, and today we are going to talk about cardiomyopathies. So basically cardiomyopathy is defined as a myocardial disorder of heart where there is structural and functional problem in heart, but that is primary and it is not secondary to any other diseases like CAD or hypertension or other congenital heart diseases, etc. Right? So it is the primary problem of the heart muscle. So there are, we'll discuss three main types of cardiomyopathy and then we'll discuss some variants. So three main types are dilated cardiomyopathy, restricted cardiomyopathy and hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Okay. So the most common among all of these three is the dilated cardiomyopathy. So now first we will talk about in short about all three of them and then we will start one by one. So as the name suggests, dilated cardiomyopathy, there is dilatation, thinning of the heart, there is cardiomegaly. Okay. The thickness of the myocardium decreases. Therefore, the contractility of the heart will decrease. And therefore, it will lead to systolic failure. And ejection fraction will be decreased in dilated cardiomyopathy. Now, in restrictive cardiomyopathy, there is infiltration or there is some storage or there is fibrosis of the myocyte. Okay, and this leads to eventually leads to restricted filling of the heart. Okay, because of this there is severe diastolic failure. Why diastolic failure? Because heart cannot get filled. In dilated the problem was with contraction. In restrictive there is problem with filling with dilatation, right? So ejection fraction is normal in restrictive. It's normal for a quite long period of time. Eventually it can decrease, but initially it is normal. And now in hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, there is hypertrophy of the left ventricle, mainly of the septum. Okay, so this is also a diastolic dysfunction rather than systolic. So ejection fraction is also preserved or is maintained in hypertrophic. Okay, now let's start with dilated. So causes for dilated can be genetic. So in genetic cause is the most common for dilated cardiomyopathy, and titin gene mutation is one of the genetic mutation which is autosomal dominant. Okay. Other cause can be post myocarditis, like after myocarditis patient can develop dilated cardiomyopathy. So myocarditis, as the name suggests, is the inflammation of the myocardium. It can be either infective myocarditis or non-infective myocarditis. The most common cause in infective myocarditis is Chagas disease caused by Trypanosoma cruzi. Okay, and in non-infective cause we have sarcoidosis. So here in myocarditis there is global hypokinesia of the ventricles of the heart muscle without any regional variation. So in CAD we have seen that if there is anterior wall MI, the anterior portion will be hypokinetic, but the rest of the heart will be functioning normally. But here in myocarditis the entire heart is hypokinetic. Okay. One criteria which is Dallas criteria, Dallas criteria, DALLAS, Dallas criteria, which is used to diagnose this myocarditis, and it is based on the histological appearance on the endomyocardial biopsy finding. Right. Now coming on to the third cause, which is peripartum cardiomyopathy. Peripartum cardiomyopathy occurs in the last trimester or in the 6 months after delivery. Okay, the prognosis is good for postpartum peripartum cardiomyopathy, but the cause is unknown. Okay, there are some high risk factors which are increased maternal age, increased parity or twin pregnancy. Next cause is drug induced. So in drugs we have some drugs like anthracycline, trastuzumab, cyclophosphamide, VEGF inhibitors. All these drugs can cause drug induced cardiomyopathy. Let's compare two drugs, cardiomyopathy caused by two drugs. One is anthracycline and other is trastuzumab. So cardiomyopathy caused by anthracycline is irreversible, whereas cardiomyopathy caused by trastuzumab is reversible. In anthracycline, the cardiomyopathy is dose dependent. In trastuzumab, it is dose independent. Okay, and in anthracycline, on biopsy, we will find myocyte destruction, and there can be vacuolar degeneration and myofibrillary loss in anthracycline induced cardiomyopathy, whereas in trastuzumab the biopsy will be normal. Okay, but overall drug induced cardiomyopathy has a bad prognosis. And last cause is alcohol induced. Okay, so we saw 5 causes. Now what will be the clinical features? Since the contractility is affected, the patient can have fatigue, dyspnea, and due to dilatation there can be congestive symptoms. There will be edema, orthopnea, raised JVP. We can also hear S3 sound, right? We have talked about S3 sound in detail. And we can even see pulsus alterans. What is pulsus alterans? One pulse is normal, other pulse is of low amplitude. The other pulse is again normal, next pulse is again of low amplitude, right? The treatment for this is similar to that of heart failure. Okay, we are going to talk about heart failure in further podcast. So whatever the treatment is for heart failure, similar is the treatment for diastolic dilated cardiomyopathy, right? Now coming on to the next cardiomyopathy, which is restrictive cardiomyopathy. Now talking about cause, we divide the cause in 3 main categories. One is due to infiltration between the myocytes, other is storage within the myocytes, and the third one is fibrosis. So infiltration within the myocyte, in that we have amyloidosis and sarcoidosis. So amyloidosis is the most common overall cause of restrictive cardiomyopathy. In storage, we have Fabry's disease, which is due to alpha galactosidase deficiency, and we have Cory's disease. Okay, Cory's disease is deficiency of debranching enzyme. So the mnemonic was there in the biology, in the biochemistry, ABCD. Anderson's disease, there is defect in branching enzyme, and Cory's disease, defect is in debranching enzyme. Okay, so Fabry's and Cory's in storage, and in fibrosis we have scleroderma. Now clinical features, mostly the patient are asymptomatic, but sometimes they may get symptoms of palpitations or tachycardia, or there can be increased respiratory rate. Okay, S4 sound can be heard. So S4 sound, we know that for S4 sound to be audible, the atria should be actively contracting, but the ventricle should be rigid, or the compliance of the ventricle should be reduced. Okay, in that case we will hear S4 sound, right? Wall is generally not thickened in restrictive, except in amyloidosis. In amyloidosis the wall is thickened, but overall if we talk about restrictive cardiomyopathy, the wall is not thickened. Okay, coming on to the next cardiomyopathy, which is hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. So in hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, basically the main part where the hypertrophy is the septum. So on the biopsy or on the microscopy, we will see myofilament disarray, myofiber disarray. And most common mutation in hypertrophic cardiomyopathy is of sarcomere gene, and which code for beta myosin heavy chain. So heavy chain is most commonly mutated in hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. So as we have seen, in hypertrophic we will get diastolic dysfunction. So the heart will not be able to accommodate blood. That's why the patient can have exercise intolerance. Okay, the first pathophysiology is diastolic dysfunction. The other one is left LVOT obstruction, like left ventricular outflow tract obstruction. Okay, so this obstruction is a dynamic obstruction, which is due to SAM. SAM is SAM, systolic movement of anterior leaflet of the mitral valve. Okay, so again here also we have Bernoulli's principle. So see, the septum is thickened, right? So septum is thickened, already the outflow tract is, the passage of outflow tract is narrowed. Okay, so through this narrow tract the blood has to pass. So the velocity of the blood will be higher. Since the velocity is high, the negative pressure will be created there, and the anterior leaflet of the mitral valve will be pulled towards the septum, right? So during systole, when the blood is moving out, there is pulling or there is motion of the anterior leaflet of the mitral valve, and this causes dynamic obstruction, right? So it is called, why is it called dynamic obstruction? You have understood, and it is due to systolic anterior leaflet motion of the mitral valve, right? So now this obstruction depends on 3 things: preload, contractility, and afterload. Now see, preload is the blood coming to the heart. The more the blood comes to the heart, the more dilated the heart will be, lesser will be the obstruction. Okay, so higher the preload, lesser the obstruction, lesser the preload, higher the obstruction. Talking about contractility, the more is the contractility, the velocity of the blood passing through that outflow tract will be higher, and more the velocity, more will be the negative pressure created and more will be the obstruction. So increase in contractility will lead to increase in obstruction. The next point is afterload. Now afterload is the resistance by the peripheral blood vessels. So if the resistance is higher, the speed by which the blood will leave the outflow tract will be lesser. Or let's see this other way. If the afterload is lower, if the afterload is less, okay, in that case the blood will move faster from the heart and will move faster to the peripheral blood vessels. So if the velocity increases, again the negative pressure will increase and the obstruction will be higher. So lesser preload, higher the obstruction, afterload. So lesser the afterload, more is the obstruction, and more is the afterload, lesser will be the obstruction, right? So I have understood all three: preload, contractility and afterload. Now when the patient is doing Valsalva maneuver or is standing, what happens is, in Valsalva maneuver the pressure in the intrathoracic cavity is higher, so blood coming to the heart will be lower. Okay, same case with standing. So if the patient is standing, blood will be pooled in the lower limbs and blood in the heart will be lesser. Okay, this will lead to a lesser preload. The preload will be less, and if the preload is less, the obstruction will be more. Therefore the intensity of the murmur will be higher. If the patient is squatting or the leg raising is performed, then the murmur will be lower, because squatting increases the preload, and so squatting and leg raising basically is increasing the preload to the heart. That's why there is dilatation of the cavity of the left ventricle and the obstruction is decreased. So intensity of the murmur will also be reduced. And if the patient performs hand grip exercises, so that will increase the afterload, right? So if the afterload is increased, the murmur will be decreased, right? The next complication, so we talked about diastolic dysfunction, then we talked about left ventricular outflow tract obstruction, then coming on to the next pathophysiology or next complication, which is mitral regurgitation. So because of this SAM, the motion of the mitral valve, there can be mitral regurgitation. So the ventricle is pumping the blood in the aorta, but since the anterior leaflet of the mitral valve is moving away, the blood can also go into the left atria. Okay, so this causes mitral regurgitation. But mitral regurgitation in hypertrophic cardiomyopathy is of mild to moderate type. If you find that mitral regurgitation is of severe type, then that may be possibly because of damage to mitral valve apparatus. Okay. So clinical features of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy will be exercise intolerance, dyspnea or angina. Angina because the thickness of the myocardium is increased, so the demand will increase. Patient can have orthopnea, PND. On pulse examination, we will get pulsus bisferens. So pulsus bisferens is two peaks in the systole. Okay. Apex will be shifted only downwards, not outwards, because there is only hypertrophy, not dilatation. And S3 and S4 sounds can be heard. The murmur in this hypertrophic cardiomyopathy is of crescendo decrescendo type. Okay. And history, basically majority of the people will have normal life. Okay, all these symptoms will be present in very few people. 98 to 99% of people with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy will have a normal life. And average lifespan of people with hypertrophic cardiomyopathy is almost equal to normal people. Only in some cases, there can be sudden cardiac death or there can be atrial fibrillation. Okay, so this sudden cardiac death is a classical history of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. So they'll give in the case that there was a young male who was participating in a athletic or a competitive sport and suddenly died after the event or during the event. So then this possibly points towards the hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. How do you diagnose? Diagnosis is made by echocardiography, and management is basically you advise the patient to avoid any competitive sport and to maintain hydration at all times. So if the hydration is not maintained, preload will decrease and these symptoms will further be aggravated. So we tell him to maintain hydration, adequate hydration. Now in management we have pharmacological therapy and non-pharmacological therapy. Pharmacological therapy, we give beta blockers, calcium channel blockers, mainly verapamil, and we avoid digoxin because digoxin increases contractility, right? So if the contractility is increased, the severity of obstruction increases. Therefore, digoxin is contraindicated in hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. But if these pharmacological therapies are not effective, and if we want to go for intervention, then for intervention we go for septal myectomy. So we cut out the hypertrophied part of the septum, or we can go for septal ablation. Okay, so this will improve the symptoms, right? So this was about hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Now coming on to the other miscellaneous or other extra types. So in that we have 3 to 4 types. So the first one is ARVD, arrhythmogenic right ventricular dysplasia. 2 points to be remembered here. The normal myocardium of the right ventricle is replaced by the fibrofatty tissue, and there is mutation in the desmosomal gene. Okay. Next one is Yamaguchi cardiomyopathy. This is a variant of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy where only the apical wall is thickened. Okay, normally in hypertrophic cardiomyopathy septum was thickened. In Yamaguchi the apical wall is thickened. Okay, and the other one is Takotsubo cardiomyopathy. So Takotsubo cardiomyopathy is a temporary heart condition. Okay, that results or that is brought on by a stressful event. Okay, it has the similar symptoms as that of heart attack, but there is no underlying cardiovascular disease. Okay, this Takotsubo cardiomyopathy is known by various names like stress cardiomyopathy or broken heart syndrome. Okay, and it is a type of dilated cardiomyopathy. Generally it has a good prognosis, and it is common in females. The trigger, as we have said, is the stress. Some stress is the trigger. Like in the history there can be like there was a fight, or there was an emotional fight or something like that, and suddenly she developed these features. So that can point the diagnosis towards Takotsubo. Now we can also get ST elevation, and troponins can also be raised in Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, but the ECG changes will be much more prominent than troponin elevation. So troponin will be slightly raised, but ECG changes will be very prominent. Okay, and the last one is Kishan's disease. It is basically a type of dilated cardiomyopathy, and it is because of selenium deficiency. Okay, so that was about cardiomyopathy. We talked about 3 main types: dilated, restrictive, and hypertrophic, and then some miscellaneous. Okay, like ARVD, Yamaguchi, Takotsubo, and Kishan's disease. Right, so that's it. See you in the next podcast. Till then, enjoy and keep studying. Bye bye.